A bipartisan group of senators reached a deal for a framework on new gun legislation yesterday, planning to take action in the wake of deadly mass shootings at that supermarket in Buffalo, New York, and the elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. The group has not written the full text of the bill, but here what was included in the deal: incentives for states to pass red flag laws to keep weapons out of the hands of people a court has deemed dangerous, enhanced background checks for gun buyers between 18 and 21, and funding for mental health, also school safety. The framework also includes provisions that close loopholes in gun policies for domestic abusers and criminalizes purchasing a gun for someone barred from buying one themselves. Longtime gun reform advocate Democrat Chris Murphy and Texas Republican John Cornyn led the group, which now includes 10 Republicans, making it possible for the potential bill to meet the Senate's 60-vote threshold once it's brought to a vote. I'm joined now by one of the senators who helped broker this deal, Democratic Senator from New Mexico, Martin Heinrich. Senator, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
So let's talk through what is in this deal and what is not. The compromise does not include some of the big things that Democrats had been pushing for, that President Biden had been pushing for, including raising the age to buy an assault weapon. So how big of a step forward is this in the fight for gun reform?
Well, it's a first step. It is a big first step. This, if we can pass this, would be the biggest thing to happen since the assault weapons ban was passed in the 1990s. And there are a number of provisions in this, including with respect to domestic violence, the enhanced background checks, trafficking and straw purchaser language that will absolutely save lives. And so I think this is a very important first step.
Senator, it's not clear, though, that even if this legislation were in place, that it would have stopped the massacres in Uvalde or Buffalo. What do you say to argue that those who argue, I should say, that these changes just don't go far enough?
That the more we're able to actually engage on this issue and change policy as opposed to just viewing it as a political battle for one side or the other, the more we'll be able to do and the more lives we'll be able to save. I've heard time and again, when we have these conversations, oh, that law wouldn't have fixed this particular shooting. I think the way that we should be viewing this is as many things as we can do to reduce gun violence, because every single life we save is everything for a family somewhere.
Do you think that if this does become a law, do you think this would have prevented the massacres, though, that the country has just witnessed?
I know that it could have prevented some shootings. When you look at being able to find someone in the database, in the NICS database, who has had previous issues that should raise flags, the enhanced waiting period is something that is going to help with that. In addition, we've seen in my state the incredible amount of gun violence in neighboring Mexico that comes from firearms trafficked from the United States. I think it would be shocking for most of your viewers to know that while it's illegal and prosecutable to traffic guns into the United States, it's actually not illegal to traffic them out of the United States. There are so many common sense things that we've been able to include in this legislation that will absolutely help law enforcement prevent more gun violence.
So in terms of the numbers, 10 Republican senators signed on to agreeing to this bill. None of them are on the ballot this year. What do you think that says about the political dynamics around this issue, particularly when you look at the polls, Senator, when the vast majority of Americans support provisions like expanded background checks and red flag laws?
Well, I think we were looking for people who were genuinely willing to engage and not use this for a re-election campaign. And that's what happened this time around that was different, is people came together and were not stuck in their previous positions. They were willing to say, what can we do to show the American people we can govern, that we can start this conversation and do things that will matter? And that is why you see some of the names that you see. I mean, I'm not up for re-election either. But boy, if I could go home to my constituents, to people who have been victims of gun violence and say, we are doing this, this, and this that is going to change things. I know it's not everything, but it's a start. That would be the most progress we've seen in decades.
Yeah. So you have 10 Republicans. Can you guarantee that you will hold every single Democrat and that once this is legislative text, once it's a bill, that it will become law?
You can never guarantee, but I feel very good about where this framework landed. And the fact that you have Chris Murphy, who has been such a champion of gun reform in our caucus, leading the negotiations, that speaks very well for being able to hold our members. And the fact that we have 10 Republicans is something we've never seen since I've been in this body. So I am very hopeful about being able to move forward.
So just to put a fine point on this, you're confident you'll hold all Democrats, but you're not 100% certain.
Well, I haven't spoken to every single member, but you have the real advocates for gun reform on the inside of these negotiations. So I don't think Democrats are going to be a challenge here. We're obviously going to have to hold all 10 of those Republicans, and hopefully we can build on that base and actually show the American people that we can get something done on gun reform.
And Senator, there's no legislative text yet. Are you concerned that there will be obstacles along the way that could ultimately derail its passage? How quickly do you think you could get this passed ultimately?
Well, people have been negotiating the fundamental legislative text from the very beginning. These are not new issues that just got on the table within the context of these negotiations. There have been multiple bills from both sides of the aisle dealing with these issues. And so we've had paper to trade right from the start. I think that process is moving very quickly. Those things are being drafted as we speak with both sides constructively at the table. So I do think we will get legislative text.
Very quickly, just so we put a fine point on it, when do you think it will pass ultimately? What's the timeline you're looking at?
Weeks, not months.
Okay. Senator Martin Heinrich, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.